So maybe we can just jump in. Tell us a little bit more about your business, and as lifestyle brands, you obviously have competition from like older, more established players that aren't necessarily digital. So what makes you unique to your competitors, like in the digital space, but also beyond that?
So first of all, we don't have competitor, but in total it's so that we have a product which was invented by us here in Europe, and it's so that we don't have natural demand. So we needed to create this whole business area on the one side and on the other side to build a brand at the end. So the challenges were before nobody or outside nobody walked around and said, okay, I always wanted to have a beauty box with 5 beauty products in there without knowing which kind of product I get. So we needed to invent that. And first of all, we started a lot with the influencers. So the first moves of us were press and communications. Based on that, we started then with social media, so everything in the online part. And afterwards, as soon as we saw that we get an operational excellence, as soon as we see that the business is working quite fine, especially getting the metrics right, we started to scale, and there was traditional media, one of the big parts where we scaled then a lot of our business.
My turn? Hi. So maybe I'm going to start with what we do, because we're not yet well known in Germany. We're in Germany since last year only. So Made.com is all in all, a furniture design brand. So what we do is, our mission is to make affordable design, to make good design affordable to everybody. The way we do it is we now have a community of roughly 50 designers external to the company who work with us, and we have a team of like 30 people in-house, and we develop product on a day-to-day basis, which are unique to us, which is very, very important. We might get to that later on, if you're a brand online. And we partner directly with roughly 70 factories, or from small makers to big factories around the world. We develop the items directly with those, without middlemen, without extra costs. There is a bit of crowdsourcing of design, and there is a bit of crowdfunding, because everything that hits the UK or Europe now is usually pre-sold. I won't get too much in depth on that. So we're a UK brand. We launched in the UK in 2010, so it's been 6 years and a half. We were 3 at the very beginning, and quickly 9 when we launched. After 2 months, took us 2 months to launch the website. We were in a small office in Notting Hill Gate in the west of London. And we had a cool website with an amazing offer of, on the launch date was, on March 21st, we had 2 products. We were selling a table and a pair of 2 chairs, which, to be fair, wasn't a big deal because we had a story. At least we believe we had a story, and that was not a problem. On the week after, we had a table, a pair of 2 chairs on 4 coffee tables. On the week after, we had a table, a pair of 2 chairs, 4 coffee tables on 5 lamps. And we kept building the catalog like that on the operations. And we grew a bit. We're now in roughly 6. We are in 6 countries. So UK. Then we launched in France, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. And we are a team of roughly 250 people, mainly in the UK, a bit in France, and a bit in Germany too. And we have developed 6,000 items over 6 years. We have a catalog of 3,000 now that we keep. And that's it.
So Mark already touched on this a bit, but maybe you can also go into how your media strategy and how your marketing strategy has changed as you've gone from a very small business to where you are now in multiple markets.
Well, that's a long question, huh? How do I do it short? I mean, media strategy. Okay, so it's very simple. At the very beginning, we had no cash. So we launched the website in March. We were raising funds, but we at least didn't have the cash on the bank account. So we did 2 things. Trying to be cool. We did put naked ladies on our ads to try and be provocative. Sex sells. It worked or didn't work, a bit of each. And we just decided to be strong on PR because we had a cool story, we had cool product, blah, 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 and we thought PR would build the company just by itself. PR is good, and actually I think it's one of the key things to build your brand on the long term, but you won't build a volume company, and we're a volume business with only PR. So we started spending a bit of cash online, as we were an online company, and as beginners in online, we did as everybody would do at the time. So we spent our cash on Google and Facebook. Then we realized 3 months later that it did cost us much too much money to advertise on Facebook, so we did cut it, maybe because it was slightly right at the time, but also maybe because we were not reading the performance the way we should have read it. We plugged the whole online channels, I mean the whole online environment, and then we did something that was a bit weird. We started being crazy. We were an online company and we started doing offline. So after a year and a half, we started doing print in the UK. We then, a year after, were advertising in the tube. 2 years later, we were advertising on TV. And in the meantime, we launched Showrooms. So we now have a whole ecosystems of different media channels that work well together. So that's for the UK.
So for us, it's a little bit different because we don't have the natural demand. So when we started with 500 boxes, we started to send them out to the PR, to press, and to influencers. Based on that, it was more or less a hyper growth in 2 years, where we've gone from 500 boxes to more than 100,000 boxes. So it's not the natural demand you have. So SER or Google or Facebook is not working like it worked for other companies. As I said, nobody's searching for a box. So what we need to create is always, and to show the experience you have with our box. And if we go through the whole years, it's so that traditional media and events are two of the biggest parts we are doing. First of all, the TV campaigns we are doing on a more performance base, but still with a lot of branding. And on the other side, and that's what we have done this year, we have rented the biggest location here in Berlin, the Mercedes-Benz Arena, and we had more or less a party with 10,000 of our customers. So in total, we are going definitely other ways than most of the people. And I think that's pretty interesting. For next year, we definitely want to do the GlossyCon again, but on the other side, it's so that we think about to release a magazine in the retail market. I think most of the online companies never thought about to release a magazine. We think about that, and I think that's the good thing about our model. On the other side, about how we are thinking, it's always to get a better experience for our core product. And that's what we currently are doing in all the marketing stuff we're doing.
That's really interesting because we had our speaker this morning, Paul, for those of you who are also here for the morning sessions, from IM, and he has actually very similar story that they had grown their business with sort of a community-driven, really highly experiential approach, and then came out also with a print magazine. So it's kind of interesting for me to see how this can span across verticals. And the feeling that I get is kind of like the more digital models kind of take over the world, the more these really in-person tangible experiences can be meaningful. Is this why you've gone into it, or tell me a little bit about the rationale behind it?
It's so that we get a lot of feedback from our customers. One of the key parts of our product is to have each month a feedback survey, and based on that feedback we try to increase the box quality and the experience we have. And it's so that in Germany and in some other countries there is no real beauty advisor. If you go to the normal beauty store like Douglas or Sephora, they try to sell you the product where they have the highest margin, or on the other side where they definitely need to kick out the stock. So in Germany you don't have the typical beauty advisor, and I think that's the role we want to be, or we are more or less in that role. And that is, as a beauty advisor, it's not only online, we want to be in all the ways you can experience beauty. So offline is a big part, because still most of the people, they inform themselves not only on Instagram and YouTube, they use magazines as well.
Awesome. Is there anything that you guys have tried in sort of the direction of experiential marketing, or is it more the experience when they kind of unpack the first product that they get from you and sort of having that experience?
So we did both. I'm quite happy that you mentioned the second experience, because that's what we built the company on at the very beginning. When I said we were spending cash online, we actually were very cash savvy. We raised funds in 2010, and then we re-raised in 2012, but we hadn't even burned half the cash we had raised. We were not burning anything. We're like, we can't burn our cash. It's our company, by the way. We need to be safe. So we did a lot in like ensuring that the experience the customers were getting was good. I mean, Mark, you mentioned like feedback. So you do it every month. We do it slightly differently. We send a feedback email to our customers after each delivery. Okay. So I think now we grouped it per order, but after every day we're receiving like every day we're sending 1,000 feedback emails to customers on average. And that gives you a very, very good insight on how you should get your brand to evolve. And it also creates that link, that trust link with your customer. On the other side, which is what did we do also, we did quite a few things. One of the big challenges we have, being an e-commerce furniture company online, we have a few challenges. First, we sell big ticket items. We're not in the accessories business. We actually just launched last week our first homeware range, but we're selling sofas, storages, things that would cost you like 500 to 1,000 euros. So it's quite a bit of a bet for people to buy that product. The second thing is we sell our own brand. So there is no way they could see the product somewhere else. So they have to trust you. And we were a new company. So we invested a lot in, at the very beginning, images, trust, emailing. And then we made a call in September 2012, which was radically different to everything we had said to our customers at the beginning. We opened a showroom. I've been personally emailing customers for the first 6 months, telling them there would be no showroom. And we were getting requests every 10 a day, maybe. And we decided to open a showroom. It's the only one decision that we ever needed to vote at our board meeting. Usually you end up agreeing on you never have to vote for something, but the reason why we voted for that is nobody was sure whether it was a good or a bad idea. The issue with a showroom, and the good thing too, is if you're a good marketing person, you're very ROI driven. It's hardly impossible to anticipate the ROI you're gonna get on your showroom later on. So it's a bet you have to make. So we opened showrooms, and that worked quite well. We have now 6 showrooms in Europe, and we did a few other things. We created an online platform called Unboxed, on which customers, would they be made customers or not, upload pictures of their home. It's a bit like a Pinterest or Instagram or Facebook for your holiday pictures. And we have more than 10,000 users who created profiles there and uploaded pictures of their home, and then future customers can interact with them on its an unmoderated platform that enables interactions and builds trust.
So I have a follow-up question to that. I think it's really interesting, this trend that a lot of brands that you typically, like in a traditional business model, you would like to touch, you would like to try, you would like to feel it. That a lot of these types of brands are opening up these kind of showrooms, and it's kind of changing how brick and mortar stores work. What exactly was your rationale? Because you said some people thought it was a terrible idea, some people thought it was a great idea. What made you decide for it in the end?
I think what makes you decide at the end is the quantity of people who ask you for a showroom. That's seriously the best way of making decisions in business is to listen to what your customers are telling you. So that was an obvious one. I can't answer on whether a showroom is good for like a shoe retailer or stuff like this. For us, it made even more sense as, again, we're selling our own products. So if you don't have made.com furniture, or you don't have a friend who has it, there is no way for somebody to see it. Okay? So that made a lot of sense. And it has a huge impact, we can see, on the sales, on the conversion, on all that. We have 3 in the UK. We don't need to have, I don't think we need to have a showroom in every country. What we realize is our showrooms are more destination showrooms, so people travel to it, would it be in the city or between cities, but we don't even need to put them in like very expensive areas in the city.
So let's rope it back a little bit to the kind of media topic. So since you're active in quite a few markets, how have you used media to sort of bring your business to new markets? Has it played a large role, and which media have been the most helpful in sort of launching in new markets?
For us, definitely the influencer and social media part. But to be honest, before we launch on a big scale, it's normally so that we try to have operational excellence. Back 2012, we had a hypergrowth, and it was so that the operational excellence wasn't there. So it's much more important to have a satisfied customer, and based on that, just try to scale, and not to scale as soon as you enter a market. Especially, we are now working since a year on Switzerland. and especially Switzerland has some traditional topics because they are not a normal EU partner. So that means you definitely need to be there on operational excellence, which is quite different to other countries. And there we are pretty small and don't do any media. We only focus ourselves on getting everything on track in terms of shipment, quality, and boxes. And it takes now more than 12 months. So sometimes it's much more important to have a good quality and to have satisfied customers on a small base, and then go with traditional media and scaling up the business.
We had kind of the same kind of issue in 2012. So so operations and logistics and customer service are always the key. So when we launch a country, we set up. I used to say we set up 3 things, and I was wrong. We usually set up a team. We build up some marketing, and before that we set up operations, which means local logistics with local partners. On the 4th thing we did forget when we launched in Italy, on we didn't forget then when we launched in Netherlands and Germany, was payment methods. So you have to adapt your offer to your customers. Then in terms of media, what's common between all the countries is our online mix is roughly the same usually. So it's always PPC on shopping, on some display, but very targeting display, and that's called Facebook. And then you have all the closing channels, which are Criteo on retargeting, on affiliation, sometimes. We went to offline much quicker when we launched France and Germany and Netherlands, just because we knew that the mix was working good and well. But the offline mix totally depends on the country. So we do print in the UK, but we didn't find yet a way of doing print from a profitable basis, a point of view, I think, in France. It's more expensive. We do advertising in the tube, in London and in Paris, but we don't do it in Netherlands or in Berlin, because that's not the way customers do behave. I mean, customer behavior is very different. And that's it. The other things that we do offline that are common is we actually do catalogs. So we're really an offline company now. We send catalogs, and that's it.
So just sort of to get a little bit more concrete, when you're building up, how focused are you on the performance aspect, and how focused are you on the brand itself? So what kind of balance does this have for you in the stage that you're at now? And of course, this is going to be different in new markets versus your main market. But how does this balance out for you?
I think it's pretty different between our countries, especially. But in total, brand is key. Because at the end, if you have a diluted brand with different mixes in terms of voucher codes and discounts and so on a long-term base, you will fail, especially in the luxury brand part. So yeah, brand is key, and that's why our marketing mix is a little bit different than the typical e-commerce store. We are really going into communications, influencers, social media, and then into customers. The best brand ambassador of us is our customer. And you see it normally, especially when the box is arriving, all customers normally are telling their neighbors, their colleagues in the office, and on Instagram and other social media channels that they got the box, and they give us direct feedback. So for us, brand is key, and it's really a little bit different to typical or traditional e-commerce stores.
I think if you look at just numbers, brands vs non-brand is roughly 50-50. It depends on the market. To be fair, I have no idea whether we do it perfectly or not. I think that's one of the biggest challenge you have when you run an e-commerce company, is to know how much you should invest in your brand, on where. I think the human brain is very binary. It's a bit, if you go back to the metaphor of Matthias before, you have your beer, but usually you don't like to be mixing your beer on your Sprite. So you're binary. You need to be very ROI driven, but when you're very ROI driven, it's extremely hard, if not sometimes impossible, to say, okay, but I'm gonna bet 50K there, but I don't know whether it's gonna perform or not. And by the way, there is no KPI that can tell me whether it's gonna perform or not. But you still need to do it, otherwise you're just buying growth. You're not investing in the long-term growth. And one of the reasons why, I mean, if you look at our markets, so Germany is one of the fastest growing markets now for us, especially because, I mean, I think we have good positioning, but it's the newest, so that's normal. But the company itself is still growing by 50% per year. But even the UK, on the 7th year in the UK, is growing by almost that, roughly around 40%, which is quite big, and the ROI is improving every year, year by year. And I think that's the effect of long-term branding. And that's your social media activity, that's your PR, that's the fact that we opened a showroom 3 years ago. And it's extremely hard to qualify, but you just need to dedicate some cash to it.
That was actually going to be my next question. And when you say, especially Mark, that the branding, everything is about the brand, and branding is such a strong focus for you, do you have ways, like Julien does, to measure how successful these branding efforts have been, or is it kind of like you just know that that's what you need to be investing in?
First of all, we ask our customers each month about have they seen us in any print advertisement on TV or something else. Normally, most of the women see us on the typical TV stations. Men don't see us so often. That's why we really go on a targeted way of advertisement. But first of all, we ask our customers. The second is, for sure, we always check our traffic and look into the right dimension of is it branded, non-branded, and so on. But still, on a budget side, and that was the second question, more than 90% of our budget is going directly into brand advertisement. So it's really a kind of different than most of other companies would do. You can more compare us with some luxury brands because they are acting pretty similar. You would never find a Chanel handbag if you would search for a handbag because they would never do this non-brand advertisement.
That was also going to be my question, because both of your products are like very high-end, very design-oriented, very sort of visual, tangible. How does this change your perspective on like how you decide on creative, like what kind of creative to use, or this kind of push towards brand? How much is this affecting your decisions on marketing?
Yeah, so before I started at Glossybox, it was a daily deal, and daily deal was really hard focused on conversions. So we always talked about call to action, and at Glossybox it's so I'm sitting there and everybody's talking about nice pictures and a good feeling and a nice experience, and always I'm asking if there is a possibility to put their call to action in that. So it's more about the visual statement we are doing in all our channels. So it's not that performance driven, and it's more a nice picture with a good experience for the customer. So yeah, we are definitely different.
It's a tough question because I think we haven't nailed it yet at Made, seriously, on what should be our marketing campaigns, and we're changing it all the time, and we're still trying to find it. But again, as we're a visual product, we invest a lot in visuals. So that's why our visual campaigns work well. That's why showroom is important. That's why we decided on the first day, we made a choice when we launched the website in the UK, which was to have very clean images of products on more white backgrounds. And you would never see the products in a flat or something like this. So one of the reasons was we didn't have the cash to take pictures of products in the flat. And the second reason was that was the kind of brand we wanted to have, this Apple-style white background thing. And then we found a way of tackling this issue through this Unbox platform, wherefrom we can pull a lot of images of the same products in people's homes without having to generate them. But it's a complex one to know how you should brand your stuff. We always wanted to have the product first. That was key. We want our ads to be simple. That's something that we've always put a lot of emphasis on. And one of the things we learned, though, was after 6 months of business, we learned that even though you're very good at taking pictures, you should be you should be careful about not overselling the item. We had a product we launched with amazing pictures, and we sold like, let's say, 50 in the first week, and we had 4 people calling saying, it's actually not what I was thinking when I looked at the picture, so I'm sending it back. And you end up decreasing the quality of the picture you have on your website, not to oversell it.
Yeah, perhaps to add something on that, it's not only the picture or the visual world, it's about the story you normally need to create for each product and for each of our boxes. So each month we try to create a new story and a new storyline for our box. And at the end, that's working by far on the best, because at the end your customer is trying to get into this world. Like in January we are talking about detox, in February about Valentine's Day. You try to get them into the story you are creating, and on the best case, it's so that the customer is creating the story or is creating own stuff for this story as well. So that's more or less the world we want to have.
So you both mentioned the different touch points that your customers have and sort of interacting with, first of all, like with media and then with sort of your story in general and then also with the product. This is obviously quite different than a purely digital model, so maybe you can talk a little bit about how the customer lifecycle works for you and where like the key touch points are in terms of media, but also in terms of like having a tangible touch point with your product throughout the customer lifecycle.
So for each customer, normally we have an own beauty profile, means normally each customer has an own touch point or a own chain of touch points with us, not only by email and social media, but with postcards, with envelopes we will send to them, with a box. So it's pretty individualized and personalized based on the beauty profile a customer has, and we try to get the customer through the story in 10 to 15 touch points each month. So that's quite different, and I think that's the good case, because normally we are talking about CRM campaigns, which are pretty normal, and after 3 days you're sending this campaign and it's an A/B test. We try to have a CRM chain which is pretty individualized based on the behavior of the customer, and I think we are doing it pretty great, because when I've started it was so that the customer lifetime value was between 6 and 7 months. Now we are at 13 to 14 months, and it's going up, and that's pretty good.
So touch points. The one thing with furniture is it's usually a long process to buy. You don't buy a sofa just because you saw a cool sofa and you want to buy it now. So it's usually a long buying process. And if you look at numbers, it on average takes 30 days for somebody who visits the website to then convert on average. We play with our different channels so that we are in the customer's mind or accessible at every stage. We're present on Pinterest, on Instagram, on social channels, so that people have us in mind when they're looking for inspiration. If one day they're going to furnish their home, then we use all the display channels. But at the moment, it's only, as I said, very targeted Facebook or other display to like create awareness on that's top of mind channels. And then it's quite simple. Huh? Then it goes down to PPC on shopping when people are willing to buy on. And then you decide to activate or not activate your closing channels, which are retargeting and affiliation, depending on how much you want to invest in getting the customers now. Then when they bought, we try and keep the relationship for a while, because it's quite hard already to get people to repeat in the furniture business. It's big items. So they receive, and people have to wait. Actually, when we started the business, one of the reasons why we had an amazing value in terms of pricing was because people were massively pre-buying, so we were pre-selling and then buying the item from the factory, and they had to wait for 14 months on average. That was at the beginning. Now it's on average 14 weeks. It's on average 3 weeks now. So you have to have all those touch points with the customer when they place the order, then when your item is shipped, is arriving at the warehouse, when you're going to dispatch it and all that stuff. And we spend quite a lot of time in improving the communication we have with them, so that they feel it's as personalized as possible, and they don't feel that we've forgotten them. And they, by the way, remember they ordered the sofa the day before the sofa arrives, and they don't forget.
So also, still speaking about customers, how do you generally get insights about your target customers? And you've spoken about how you really go for direct feedback from existing customers, but I think also a very interesting question for some of the startups out here is, how do you know? Like, a lot of what we've heard from some of the other speakers is like, know your target group before you start investing big into media. Like, know your target group. How do you guys go about developing these insights into like knowing this is where I can reach my target group? I know this is their home, and I know this is the right place to invest because this is where they're at.
I think it's. I'm going to be short. I think it's quite. At the end of the day, it's quite simple. First of all, you run surveys on your customers, or you buy databases, or you send your emails on the email address, and then people tell you who your customers are, which is sometimes surprising. It took us 3 years to run our first survey, which is a bit late, when we realized that our target audience of customers was not 20 to 35, but was 35 to 50. on affluent, on mainly female, I mean 60-40, on blah, 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 blah. So it's quite easy to get some data. And then it's for you to choose on whether you're going to focus your communication on those guys, on make the most of your target audience, or whether you want to try and find ways of getting other customers into the mix.
It depends a little bit. For us, it's a little bit easier. Go outside into a retail store and give them boxes and get the feedback directly. So for us, it's a little bit easier. But for furniture, yeah, I'm not sure that he can go outside with a bed or a sofa and give them as a gift. So we can gift them to anybody and get the feedback directly. And normally, and that's pretty important for us, most of our employees are females. To be honest, I'm perhaps the guy who has the less experience with beauty products. Still, I need to use them because I'm working there, but we have a lot of females who are so passionate about the product, and they are the persons who are waiting each month for the next box. And if you have so passionate teams about the product, then you don't need to do so many surveys and things before, but afterwards it's pretty important.
Another thing is when you know them, how to target them, it seems quite simple. We do catalogs. On our catalogs, we used to send catalogs to customers and send catalogs for prospection. And the ROI on customers is 1,000 times the ROI on prospection, which was absolutely almost zero in the way we looked at it in the past. The day we decided to spend some money on pay some consulting agency to come up with the right postcodes. I mean, postcodes in the UK means like addresses of people pre-selected. We made it profitable.
That's really cool. I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience really soon, but I did want to ask you guys if you have one piece of advice for startups that have like tangible lifestyle goods. What would you give them in terms of marketing? What's the most important thing to remember?
Get the metrics right and be in operational excellence, to be honest. And then afterwards try to start to advertise. Because the worst thing you can have is a product which is not good in quality, because you directly lose this customer forever. So quality is key.
The same. At the end is focus on your product, on the experience. A small story, I mean, in 2011, so after a year and a half of business, we started growing super fast. And there were a few reasons to that. One of it was that we gave a kick in the ass of our marketing agency who was not working well enough. But the main reason was that we had released amazing collections. Done. I mean, new collections means long-term growth, means more conversion. And I mean, there is nothing else which matters. We never had, the best ROI we ever had in the company is not now. It was in the UK when we launched, or a year after, because we were creating growth just with good products.